Hackensack, and y'all have become very familiar with Dr. Joan. And Dr. Joan has agreed graciously to do the call for this evening. And she has always been such an asset to me. And I do want to give a shout out to Darlene and just thank her for always being on the calls and always being consistent. Um, Joan is going to go ahead and give the presentation this evening. Dr. Joan, are you there?
I am here. Yes, thank you.
All right, so you know this material as well as I, if not better than me. You've been integral in preparing this and as well as putting it together. Same thing with Darlene. We do know there's one thing. There's nothing new in the world. Everything has already been said. It's just a different perspective and a different way of looking at things. And so I am always privileged to have you on the call. I'm always privileged to have the agents on the call. We're privileged to be able to have our own business. And with that having been said, I just want to turn the time over to you, Dr. Joan. Do you have everything you need to get it going, start recording, do whatever you got to do?
Yes. All right.
All
well,
right.
thank you so much.
Without any further ado, my colleague for going on, 10 years, and
yep.
Somebody I consider a very wonderful personal friend. Always been honorable, always been wonderful. Somebody I can't speak highly enough about. I'll turn the time over to Dr. Joan Hackensack.
Thank you so much, Mac. My goodness gracious, what a very kind introduction. And thank you very much for entrusting me to be on the call tonight. That's very kind of you, and hopefully I will do you just. So, and thank you everybody for being on the call. I'm very excited. We have a lot to cover today. So with your permission, we're going to go ahead and jump in. And first, we do want to start with just a quick little review. Now, we have been talking about the 6 lessons of sales track. In fact, the past 2 weeks, we've been talking about bringing it all together. So what is the 6 lessons of sales track? Well, the first step is, with whom do I start? This is really identifying who are you going to start with. Really, the best thing that one can do is create a list. Create the list of people that you know. Do not judge. Do not predetermine whether somebody's interested in moving forward or not. Just simply write down anybody and everybody's name that comes to mind. And then that is the start of your database. Now, this is really just the start of everything. From here on out, anybody and everybody that you meet should be going into your database. Your database is your gold. Now, you always need to have that database, and those are the people you're going to follow up first. My suggestion is, once you create that list, you're going to go back and rank them on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 not so hot, 10 super hot. You know, they were just talking about all that interest they were going to give away to the financial institution. That's who you want to start with. Pick up the phone and start calling on them. But again, that's just the starting point. From here on out, anybody and everybody you meet goes into your database. If you attend networking events, if you practice a 3-foot rule, meaning anybody and everybody within 3 feet of you, they go into your database. They need to know what you do for a living. Have booths at home shows, career fairs, go to professional trainings, have educational seminars. The list goes on different places where you can prospect and find leads. That is simply your starting point. Who are you going to target as your target market? Where did they go? Get out there and go there. Now, it's great to get out there and go there, but if you're not prepared with a 15-second commercial, you're not going to get very far. It is critical to have a solid 15-second commercial. Now, that 15-second commercial is going to vary. If you are speaking with a realtor, it's going to be a little bit different of a 15-second commercial than if you're speaking with a first-time home buyer. So that 15-second commercial needs to be able to adjust based on where you're at. But having that strong 15-second commercial is critical. Now, to me, I think step number 3 is truly one of the most important things. Using qualifying questions and tie downs. Those questions are absolutely critical. You need to use these questions to guide your prospect down the path. You use this to weed out people that aren't interested. Remember what Mac just said, that we only want to move forward with the willing participants. This is your opportunity to weed out people that are truly not interested in getting out of debt, truly not interested in becoming a new agent, in having additional source of income. It doesn't matter what it is. This is your opportunity to weed them out and slowly move forward with people that are interested. It's also your opportunity to really get to know your prospect. And that is absolutely critical. This is not about you. I cannot emphasize this enough. I understand that you are in business for yourself, so it's very easy to think, ooh, I'm in business. It's all about me. It's all about my new business. Unfortunately, I hate to tell you, it is not. It really has to be all about the prospect that's in front of you. So when you're asking questions and getting to know them, you truly need to listen to what they say. What they tell you is going to be that if you truly listen, they will tell you exactly what they need to hear to move forward in that sales process. So really listen closely, but ask questions truly to get to know them and find out what's important. These questions are going to really tie into the rest of the sales track. They're going to tell you what stories to tell, which is step number 4, telling personal and borrowed stories. It shouldn't be or, it should be and. Stories evoke emotion, and people buy based on emotion, and they back it up with logic. So you need these stories to help draw people's emotion, to help get them interested and help them to take action. That's what the stories are all about. But the stories have to be relevant to the person in front of you. They have to be important to them. I wouldn't be telling a real estate investor who owns 21 properties how this helped a first-time home buyer. It truly wouldn't be of interest to them. And vice versa. You have to tell the relevant stories that are important to them. And the only way to know the relevant story is to go ahead and get to know them, to ask those questions. Once again, those questions are a critical path. Now, you also need to use the litmus test, and how they answered the qualifying questions, how they answered what was important to them is what you're going to instill in the litmus test as well. And just a quick review, there's 2 main questions on that litmus test. The first one is, on a scale of 1 to 5, where is your desire to? And then input whatever they have already told you is important to them. If they've told you they want to beat the banks at their own game, they want to get ahead financially, they want to stop giving away their hard-earned money to the financial institution, you're going to ask them, on that scale of 1 to 5, where is your desire to truly beat the banks at their own game? Where is your desire to keep more of your hard-earned money and not give it away to that financial institution? Whatever they have said was important to them, that's what you input into the litmus test. The second question within the litmus test is, are you serious or just curious? You really only want to move forward with people that are serious. Yes, people can be curious, but most people that are truly serious are curious to the next level. They really are interested in hearing more. They're more serious than just the people that are the looky-loos. It's kind of like when you go to the open house and you're the nosy neighbor, you just want to see inside. You're just curious. You're not really serious. But that person that's looking for a house in that neighborhood, looking for a house, that square footage, they're really serious. So you're really trying to determine, is this somebody you want to move forward with? And then step number 6 is setting that appointment in stone. Really making sure that that person is committed to this process. And you're going to ask them, hey, I'm a person of my word. I'm going to be there at that appointment at such and such time. You're going to be there at that time as well, aren't you? And then, of course, you can refer them to corporate or the field closer, or you can run your own analysis. So why did we take that much time on those steps? Because all 6 of these steps are your foundation. If you're going to run your own analyses, which I would encourage you to do, then you really need to have your 6 steps to sales track down, because that foundation is going to guide you through the rest of the process. Remember what the sales process looks like. There are 4 main components to a sales process. You have the introduction. The sales track is your introduction. That is your foundation. That's where you're starting to gather information and you're building the rapport. But that first appointment is also critical. You're actually going to get deeper. So far what you've done is you've really identified whether the client has the desire to move forward. Now you're going to find out, does the person have the ability to move forward on the client side? Do they really have the desire to take action? That's what you're trying to do now. Course summary, the results, that's self-explanatory. You're showing them the side-by-side comparison of what they're currently doing versus what they could be doing. And then the end of the sales process is closing the deal. So remember, these 6 steps to sales track are truly the foundation for every step that you take from now on in the sales process. So that's why I spent a little bit more time on that review, because it is rather critical. to help create that foundation. Now, I also know that if you're new, I just went through that super fast. All of these are recorded. So all of these trainings are recorded. You can actually go to YouTube and you can go back and watch all 6 of the sales steps, sales track steps. If you go to YouTube, look for the Worth Unlimited Corporate Training. It's a channel. You can subscribe to the channel and watch all of those recordings. So let's get into today, and this is first appointment foundations. Now remember, or first appointment basics, remember that those 6 steps, again, are the foundation for your first appointment. And we've seen so far that the sales process is truly an art form. Now, those 6 steps, you don't have to follow them in order. They can go in many different orders. As long as you include all 6 aspects, you are on the right path. Well, the analysis appointment is just the same thing. It also has a sequence. It has steps. It has a rhythm. It has an art to it. And it has several different steps that must be included in order to have a successful appointment. Now, we're not going to go through the entire appointment today. This is actually going to be broken up on 2 different trainings. So today we're really going to talk about creating and setting the expectations. What are the rules of engagement with that prospect? How do you ensure that you're setting it up correctly? So as we go through this, remember that if you eliminate any of these steps, it's going to truly drastically reduce the likelihood of you moving forward. Now, that said, can you still be successful? Absolutely. If you're doing something that has had great success for you, then really there's no need to change what you're doing. If you haven't been reaching the success that you want, or you're new, or you're here to create and learn, then it's time to actually use some of these steps to make your situation better. I've often found I definitely don't know everything. So when I listen to Mac and get these golden nuggets, it's often minor tweaks in what I'm currently doing that make all of the difference. Now, that said, again, it is about making the process better. And it's about making sure that you follow all the steps to increase the chances of you being successful. I also know that we have a lot of seasoned salespeople on the call. I know when I'm talking to new agent prospects, I love to hear that they've been in sales for 10, 20, 30 years, whatever it may be. With that can come a challenge. We all think that we know best. I'm just likening it to real estate yet again. It's the person that owns the house, that person always has the best house in the neighborhood. The person that's about to put the house on the market, their house is always better than the neighbor's. So unfortunately, it's never quite the case. So as we go through this first appointment, I ask that you keep your ears open. I ask that you're open to the feedback that we're going to discuss, because these are the foundations. These are the basics, and the basics exist for a reason. So don't tweak anything. Just go with it. Trust it and move forward with it, because that's really going to be one of the most important things that you can do. All right, so what we've done so far, we have set the appointment in stone. We've created the foundation with that person. We found out what's important to them. We have gotten to know them. We found out the basics. We followed up with our prospects, and we've confirmed the appointment for today. In the process of doing that, we've also let them know what to expect. Hey, we're going to be sitting down and we're going to be running an analysis. We're going to actually do a side-by-side comparison of what you're currently doing versus what the program can do for you. This way you can make an educated decision about whether or not this program's right for you. In doing so, we need to make sure all decision makers are present. Why is that critical? Well, unfortunately, if you can't tell, our program might be a little bit challenging for some people to describe. And there's nothing worse than going and doing the best presentation you've ever done to the single person in front of you, and then to hear at the end, oh, I need to go home and tell my wife. Well, are they going to do that phenomenal presentation as well? Yeah, probably not so much, unfortunately. They'll probably do their best, but they probably won't get it quite right. So there's no sense in having a one-legged appointment. So making sure that you've established the rules of the appointment, that all decision makers must be present. I also want to caution you, decision makers may not be the significant other. As example, my sister-in-law is on the program, and she is single, and she is scared of money. finances have always kind of thrown her off a little bit. So when it was time for her to actually run her analysis, she asked her mom to be a part of the process, which makes sense because her mom helps her make really big decisions. So don't assume you know who the decision maker is going to be with them. Don't assume that just because somebody's single that they wouldn't have anybody else with them. Ask them, hey, is there anybody else that needs to put their eyes on this that's going to help influence and help you make a good decision about whether or not this is a good fit? Make sure they're on the call. Allow them that opportunity to invite them. You also need to let them know what information they need to have in front of them. You're going to be running an analysis, so they need to have their most recent debt statements in front of them. What's a debt statement? Well, it's a mortgage, credit card, auto loan, student loan, line of credit, whether it's personal, commercial, whether it's a HELOC, lines of credit. They can have medical bills, IRS debt, any type of debt that they may have. They need to have their most recent debt statement in front of them. What we need from that are three main things, but there are other things. We need their balance. So how much principal do they owe down to the penny? We don't want them to round up. We don't want to hear, oh, it's about $250,000, garbage in, garbage out. So we need to set that rule from the beginning. So we need to know exactly how much debt you have down to the penny. We need to know what the payment is. How much are you making on that mortgage? And what's the interest rate? Now, again, there's several other things that need to be included in the analysis. Having their most recent debt statements in front of them is truly one of the most critical things. So up to this point, you've established those rules. Decision makers, if you're going to be doing a go-to-meeting, then they need to be on the phone and in front of their computer with internet access, and they need to have their most recent debt statements in front of them. So you've established those rules thus far. Well, as you're going through for this appointment, you also need to establish the rules of engagement. You also need to set the tone. So setting the tone is going to be letting them know, hey, we're here for business. You're not going over there for social hour. You're not going over there to play with the puppies or to goo goo and gaga over the baby, although I think that would be fun. That's not what you're there for. So really reminding them beforehand, if they have kids, hey, I'm going to really need your attention on this. So is there anybody, can a mother-in-law, can a neighbor come over and watch the kids while we're working on this? I really want to make sure I have your undivided attention because I know that this can be a lot to talk about. So making sure you set those rules. You're there for business. You're there to hold them accountable, and you're going to lead them through the process. Remember, again, people buy an emotion, they back it up with logic. So we want to play all of our aces. We want to help them alleviate any type of anxiety that they may have. Now that sounds kind of silly. How can they have anxiety going through this process? When you don't know what to expect, if you're not sure what's coming next, you get a hint of anxiety. You get a hint of nervousness coming. So we want to make sure that people are at ease, that they're comfortable, that they're ready to move forward. And that's why setting the tone and really creating and establishing the rules of engagement is absolutely critical. They also need to feel comfortable that you are an authority figure on what you're talking about, that the things that they tell you, you're going to be comfortable to hear it, and that you're going to maintain the confidentiality. Now, obviously, just saying, hey, you can be comfortable sharing me with things is not going to help you. That is not going to be a good way to start that conversation. But coming in with confidence, having your poise with you, being prepared is going to be critical for them to trust you, to open up and help feel that you will guide them through that process. Now, when you are at their house, first of all, when you've set the appointment, you've identified where the appointment's going to be. A lot of appointments are done by GoToMeeting or by a virtual position where you're at your house or at your office. The prospect is at their home. We actually have a really phenomenal analysis tool that offers the ability to have a virtual meeting, and they can still see the presentation even if you don't have GoToMeeting. So you don't have to meet face-to-face. There is benefit, though, of course, of having face-to-face, belly-to-belly, knee-to-knee appointments. because you can build rapport a lot easier. You can really read the person a lot better, and you can really feel like you're on the same page. You can see whether or not they're paying attention, or if they put you on mute and are actually paying attention to the kid. So there's a lot of value to that. But when you set the appointment, you do need to determine where that appointment's going to be, whether it's at their house, whether it's on a go-to meeting, whether it's at your office. If you have an office, by all means, have your appointments there. Let's say, though, that you are actually having the appointment at that person's house, and there is nothing wrong with that. So whether you're on the location, whether you're at a go-to meeting, make introductions, your sales on, now this is the time to really have those first introductions. This is the time to bring back in those tie downs, those qualifying questions, the litmus test, and really some of the language from setting the appointment in stone. Because again, we're going back to setting the rules of engagement. It's actually rather critical to do that. So when you first, let's say that you are going to their house, one of the first things you're going to say is, hello, Mr. Jones. How are you today? Are you ready to go? I usually assume they are and say, hey, let's go ahead and get started. Where would be the best place for us to go through this information we need to cover? If you're at their house, obviously you're not going to walk on in and say, no, we're going to meet over here. That wouldn't work all that well. Let them obviously control the situation in their own home. Now that also goes back to, since we're talking about controlling the situation, if you have an office, it is helpful to be able to control the situation a little bit more at your office. Now, I realize a lot of us are working from home. You just heard my dog bark, and I'm at home right now, so there's nothing wrong with working at home. I also know that there's many of us on the line that do have their own office. I have an office as well. It's easier to set the office and to control the office space if they meet at your office. Not everybody's going to be willing to do that. So there is nothing wrong with going to their house. When you get to their house, though, have them guide you and help direct where you're going to work for them. Let him sit first. Now, why do you want to do that? Well, number one, it's the polite thing to do. But number two, you also want to make sure that you're sitting next to him at the table, not across from him. This is a subtle thing to help show that you are on their side, that you're not opposing them, that you're actually here to work with them to find solutions to the biggest issue that they are now facing, which is their debt. It's a very strong psychological move. Now, I don't know if you all know that I'm actually a shrink by training and by my first career. So one of the things, I used to conduct psychiatric consultations for Hospital Network, and so I literally talked people off the ledge. I was dealing with suicidal and homicidal people. One of the things that when I was first getting trained on this, that they emphasized so much was never, ever, ever stand directly in front of a person square on with your shoulder square on to them. It's in a very aggressive posture. Well, that's what this is meaning here. We're really trying to be alongside of them. We're not trying to be aggressive. We're not trying to be confrontative. We're trying to show them that we're here to work with them to find a solution. So this action is critical. If you're meeting at your office, it actually is not a good thing for you to be on your side of the desk and them to be on their side of the desk. It goes back to just the subconscious mind thinking, oh, this is an act of aggression. Ooh, he's going to be judging me. Ooh, he's squaring off on me. He thinks he's better than me. It's all a subconscious thing, but it's something that is rolling around in their head. So you have to be cognizant of that. The best thing you can do, even if they are at your office, get up, move your seat, move around, and sit by them. If you're at a round table, scoot your chair over closer to them. What I actually kind of like to do is sit between the husband and wife, if you're sitting with a husband and wife. I actually like to sit between them so I can go back and forth and talk to them both simultaneously so they can look at each other while we're talking about it. Part of this is showing that you are not the problem. It's the debt that is the problem. And together, we're going to conquer that problem. So now that you're talking to people, now that you're all sat down, you're where you need to be, now you need to start with the introductions. Now we need to remind them of the rules of engagement. Hey, when we last spoke, you told me your wife was going to be present. Is she going to be able to make the appointment? Or to my sister-in-law, Astrid, last we spoke, you said that Norma was going to be here for this appointment. Is she able to maintain that with us? what would happen if that other decision maker was not present? What would you do? Well, for me, what I would do, I would actually reschedule the appointment. That sounds counterintuitive. A lot of people would say, well, gosh, I'll just go ahead and collect the information right now. It's not that big of a deal. I'll just wait and show them the results later. Well, you can do that. If you have good results with that, congratulations. Please, by all means, continue that action. For me, when I collect somebody's financial information, it's a phenomenal opportunity to gain even more rapport. It's a great way to make sure that the decision makers are on the same page with each other. So if you don't have all of the decision makers present, you can't make sure everybody has the same goal. You can't make sure that everybody's interested in having the same type of outcome. I remember running an analysis for some friends of mine years ago, and he happened to be a realtor. That's how I was introduced to them. She is an office manager of a company, and she did not want to be a part of the conversation at all. She was so opposed to it. She was adamant she wasn't going to do it. Well, I'm a little stubborn. I was born in Philly, so I've got that Philly attitude going on. Yes, go Eagles. So I've got that attitude going on, so I was just so stubborn. I wasn't trying to be adversarial by any means. Don't take that the wrong way, please. But I was very stubborn in that, no, she needs to be present. Unfortunately, we really need to make sure that you guys are on the same page, that we're making sure that we're tackling this issue together. It's critical. Finally, I got them together. Finally, I got them on the same page. The reason why she was avoiding the appointment, she had 13 credit cards she did not want her husband to know about. Well, I'm sure you can imagine that can of worms we opened up that day. So it's critical to make sure everybody's present. A one-legged appointment is absolutely a waste of time. Now, you can be courteous about it. If that person can't be there, gosh, I appreciate that you have all the information. I get it. Unfortunately, though, what I have found is that it is really important to make sure everybody's present for this first appointment. So how about we go ahead and reschedule at a time that's convenient for everybody, and then reschedule. There's nothing wrong with that. It is okay. So let's say, though, that you did have that decision maker that you haven't met yet become present, and they are a part of that appointment. Thank goodness, that's a good thing. We're moving forward. We're cooking with heat now. Well, now you need to get to know that person. Remember, when you first started Sales Track, you were only talking to the one decision maker. Now you have both people in front of you. So you need to get to know both of them. You need to establish rapport. You also need to make sure they are all on the same page together. So you're going to start off by saying, hey, it's very nice to meet you. When I set up this appointment with your husband or with your wife, I'd ask them a few questions, and I would like to ask you those now. Is that okay with you? It's very critical to ask permission, because maybe that person is quiet. I'm not very good at being sold to it. I'm sure that's hard to believe. But my husband and I went to a presentation a few weeks ago, and right before we walked in, a friend of mine says, oh, now don't worry, don't try to be sold in there. Well, that was the worst thing that he could do. That was the worst thing he could say. I put up the stone wall. I was the unpleasant person in sitting in front of you. So, and the person started asking me questions. I'm like, don't you go there, mister. Not going to happen. Had he asked permission, had we started on a different foot in that situation, it probably would have had a different outcome. So ask permission, have permission-based sales to help them move forward. It's really important in that process. Now, remember, again, you're just meeting this person for the first time. So you need to establish rapport with them as well. Last week, I spoke about a few things that you can do to help build rapport in a very short period of time. Now, these are very subtle things that you can do. I'm just going to go through them kind of quickly again. Again, this is recorded, so you can always go back and listen to it again. One of the most important things that you can do to build rapport in a short period of time is eye contact. That sounds silly, but if you're looking away, if you're looking at your phone, checking your watch, even though you're doing it subtly, nobody can tell, people can tell, and they know that you're not really paying attention to them and what's going on in front of them. So make sure you maintain good eye contact. The proper balance of eye contact versus looking like you're just staring them down is 90-10. 90% eye contact, 10% looking away. That's mostly when you're talking. Now, when the other person's talking, you need to make sure that you're keeping constant eye contact on them. That's when it really shifts to about 95-5, because you don't want to look like you've got that schizophrenic stare going on. You don't want to look that way. So you still need to look away. You still need to bat your eyes. You need to look at the other person that's not talking, but you still need to maintain that eye contact so that they know. Other things that you can do to build rapport. Parrot back what they've said. It shows that you've heard what they've listened. So repeat back what they said. Also, believe it or not, when somebody has an objection or shows resistance, just parroting back to them what they said, they'll actually take it and run with it and often talk themselves out of that objection as well. Have a firm handshake, even with females. I can tell you that most females don't like the little the short, curt, let me just grab your fingers and shake. We actually like that firm handshake. We want to know that you are confident in yourself, that you are here to talk business, that you know what you're talking about, and you're here to move forward. So do a firm handshake. Watch your tone, match and mirror. So look at your tone, your speed of your voice or your cadence, your pressure. How fast are you talking? How fast are you going? Really fast? Look at that tone and match the person in front of you. The volume of their voice. Are they talking loud? Are they speaking softly? Believe it or not, a lot of people that are speaking really loud, they speak loudly because they're deaf and they don't want you to know. So they speak loud in hopes that you're going to match what they're doing. So do it. Match them. Their choice of language, their breathing patterns, believe it or not, watch their chest rise and fall and match that. Have yours match it. It's a very subtle way to build rapport. Mannerisms and gestures. If they talk a lot with their hands, you talk a lot with your hands. Now, obviously, you don't want to look like you're mocking them, but people like them. So you want to look like, hey, I'm like you. I'm just here to help people like you who's like me move forward in this. So just remember, people like that are like them. Now, another thing that you can do when you're sitting with somebody is watch how they respond. Are they leaning in? Are their arms open? They're leaning in. Their eyes are dilated a bit. They're actually very interested in what you have to say. Well, that person is listening to what you have to say. The second they lean back, the second that they cross their arms or they cross their legs, that's physically a barrier that they are putting between you and them, and they are saying, I am not listening to you. Whatever you just said, whatever you just did, just raised a red flag, and you need to deal with that. So keep an eye on their nonverbals. The best nonverbal to keep an eye on when you are meeting with somebody, believe it or not, is their feet. A lot of people find that a little bit shocking to hear, but the feet don't lie. So are their feet facing you? Are their feet facing the door? If their feet are facing the door, I hate to tell you, but they're wanting to leave. You need to get them back and re-engaged in that conversation. So when somebody does lean back and crosses their arm, when somebody does have their feet facing that door, when somebody is looking away, what's the best way to get them re-engaged? Tell a story. Sounds simple, right? Well, you just asked a lot of questions before in sales track, so you've already gotten to know them. And even if you haven't gotten to know the partner, you've gotten to know the original person you spoke with, who probably gave you some pretty good insight into the partner and them. So tell stories to get them re-engaged. You'll find them leaning back in. You'll find them uncrossing their arms. They're re-engaged. Now, at the same time, if they're touching their face, if their lips turn a little bit reddish, if their eyes are open wide, those are buying signs. If it's a couple, they start touching each other, they become a little bit more affectionate. Those are buying signs. So, great ways to build rapport. Watch what the person's doing in front of you. Even if you're on the phone, you can really do a lot of these things that we just talked about to help build that rapport. So, you want to recommit. Now, say that you're there for the sales process. So Mr. Jones or Mrs. Jones, let's say we're using on a scale of 1 to 5. Remember, we're going back to that litmus test. 1 represents something that has no importance to you whatsoever. And 5 represents something that is absolutely imperative, something you absolutely need or want, okay? Where would you say your desire is to get out of debt? Or where's your desire to save as much money on interest? Now, you're not asking the person that you've already met. You're asking the new partner, the person you haven't met yet. Your goal right now is to make sure that Mrs. Jones is on the same page as Mr. Jones. So don't ask Mr. Jones. You already got his answer. We're asking Mrs. Jones now, the person we haven't met yet. Now, if you're recruiting, you're going to ask the same type of thing. You're going to say, hey, let's say we're using a scale of 1 to 5. 1 represents something that has no importance whatsoever. 5 represents something that's absolutely imperative, something you absolutely need or want. Okay, got it. Where would you say your desire to earn additional income would be on that scale? And again, be quiet. Your goal is truly to hear what they have to say. So let her think. I happen to be married to a rocket scientist. My husband's an amazing, nerdy guy whom I adore. And I use that word nerdy because it's quite true. And when he's responding to questions like this, he takes his time. He doesn't jump out with an answer. He actually thinks about it to make sure he's giving you an accurate answer. Now, I'm the complete opposite. I just jump in and say, oh, I'm this on the scale. Eric, not so much. He is truly going to think about it. If you were to start talking before he answered the question, he's now lost the thought. He's not going to come back to it, and now you're moving on. So really give them time to answer that question. Some people need a little bit more time. So again, have her answer the question without telling her what her husband said, because your goal is to make sure that you guys are on the same page. There can be a disconnect. Maybe you're asking about her desire to get out of debt, and maybe it was my client's wife who had the 13 credit cards that the husband didn't know about. So her desire to get out of debt, she might be saying a 2. Well, you know, the husband's saying, I'm a 5, I'm all for it, I want to get out of debt. So there's a disconnect. So there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, your husband told me he was a 4, your husband told me he was a 5. Why are you a 2? What's going on? And then listen. She's going to struggle. She's going to squirm a little bit. She's a little bit uncomfortable right now. Where is her mind and what's going on? There's something else going on. So try to get them on the same page. Give her an opportunity to actually be uncomfortable a little bit so that she can actually say what's going on. Prompt them to discuss it and then stay out of their discussion. That's exactly what happened with this couple I was talking about. Husband, wife started talking. Wife started getting a little teary, and then finally wife fessed up to having the 13 credit cards that husband did not know. So again, had I not tried to get them on the same page, I probably never would have gotten her to admit to these 13 credit cards and would probably never have gotten them moving down the path to getting all 13 and the rest of their debt paid off in full. So stay out of their discussion in that situation. If you are sitting between them, scoot back, lean back, allow them to see each other and make themselves uncomfortable. It's okay in that scenario. Now, if they are on the same page, hey, so you say you're a 4, I have one more question. Are you serious or just curious about getting out of debt? Or are you serious or curious about earning great money part-time? Again, give her time to respond. The same procedure as you did on the scale of 1 to 5. Sometimes people need time to respond. Now, if they're positive, fantastic. I also asked your husband if he would be interested if I could show him a way to pay off his mortgage and other debts 1/3 to 1/2 the time you're currently scheduled. How would you reply to that same question? Again, we're just trying to make sure that all parties are on the same side, that there's not these deep-rooted decisions that are not aligning with each other. John, when I confirmed the appointment, I told you we were going to go over a short 10 to 15-minute questionnaire regarding your household income and debts. I said I would not be asking you for your Social Security number, birth date, or any of your account numbers. I would not be asking for any sensitive personal information. All we're going to look at today are things like your balance, interest rate, and payment on your mortgage and other debts, as well as your income and income frequencies. Do you have that information together for us? Sometimes they don't. It is what it is. Now, I sure hope he says, yes, I do. I have it in front of him, because you had prepared them. That's what you did when you set the appointment in stone. You prepared them for the items that they needed to have in front of them. So hopefully they're going to say, you know what? Yes, I do. Let me go get it for you. Or I have them right here. Here's my stack. Enjoy. If they do not, you need to consider whether or not you're going to reschedule. And sometimes I do reschedule in this situation. Sometimes I don't. It just depends on how much debt do they have, how long is it going to take them to put that information in front of them. Be curious so you really need to decide whether or not it's going to be worth that time, or whether it's going to take them a while. If it's going to take them a good half an hour, 45 minutes to get that information, yeah, I'm going to probably reschedule. If it's a matter of them popping out their laptop and then looking it up online and just giving it to you real time, I am absolutely not going to reschedule. I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to start that analysis right then. Now, we're going to talk more about collecting the information next week. But I just want to say, as you start this process, make sure you are being courteous. This can be an extremely intrusive time for people. You are really asking them, and forgive this analogy, but you're essentially asking them to stand naked in front of you financially. You're asking them for all of the good and the bad that they've done. You're asking them to strip down and show you their finances, and that can be very challenging for a lot of people. Remember, the economy was not so good not so long ago. Now we're coming back. Things are looking better. The challenge was way back then when the economy was down, people lost income. They were laid off. They had percentages of income cut. They lived on credit card just to put food on their table or keep a roof over their head. They had to get loans. It was a very trying time for a lot of people, and people got deep in debt. And people are embarrassed by that. We need to be courteous. We need to be respectful, and we need to treat them genuinely in a desire to serve them and in a desire to help them eliminate this water that's causing them to drown. It's our goal to help them do that, and we can only do that if they trust us. And so we have to be courteous, we have to be respectful, and we need to be very tactful and cognizant of what we say and how we say it. As a quick example, when you're going through credit cards, like I said, that one gal had 13 credit cards. Well, what if she pulled out her first credit card and I took her information, I put it in there, and I said, okay, great. Well, let's move on to your income. Now she has to say, well, hold on, I've got more. Well, now she's kind of a little embarrassed. It kind of felt like a judgmental thing. So when you're going through, instead of saying, okay, let's go on to the next one, let's go on to your loans and assume that they have no other debt, you're going to say something to the effect of, all right, now tell me about your next one. That's not judgmental. You're not making them feel like, oh my God, I have so much debt. I'm so embarrassed. Don't look at me. You're not being judgmental. Just ask, tell me about your next one. Tell me about your next one. All right, I've got it. Excellent. Thank you so much. Tell me about your next one. And help them move forward. Again, what may not seem to be an intrusive question may be highly offensive to people, to some people. So be very cognizant, be very tactful, be very respectful, and really watch what you're saying and how you're saying it. Keep it going. Yes, I have that. Let me get it for you. Great, thanks for putting that all together. Let's dive right in. Let's get started. Let's get down to business. So that was the first part of setting the rules of engagement. That's the first part of really setting the tone and making sure that they know you're in control, that you're here to do business, and that you're going to help them move forward in the process. Next week, we're going to discuss the flow of the first appointment and the order in which information should be presented. Keep in mind, the purpose of your first appointment is to get their numbers for the analysis. If you leave that appointment without their numbers, what you need to run an analysis, then you've wasted your time and theirs. So go prepared for business and get the job done. So in closing, this first appointment, your goals are to get the prospects on the same page. Remember, you most likely have only met one of the decision makers, and now you have more people in front of you. You may have more than two people. You may have the financial planner, the CPA, the mother-in-law, everybody in front of you. Make sure everybody's on the same page, that everybody have the same goals as they move forward. Your goal also is to get the prospects to start saying yes. That's kind of critical, guys. You want to start getting people to say yes. I often ask truth questions like, oh, it's a beautiful day outside, isn't it? I do that because I'm forcing a positive. I'm forcing them to get in that habit of saying yes. So when you say, isn't it, you're forcing that positive. You make a statement that's absolutely true and you add isn't it at the end, and you're forcing them to have that yes. You're forcing them to get that positive. You want that person to start having yes answers and start to get everybody to agree. You build rapport. That's the goal. You have to build that rapport so that they are comfortable telling you about all 13 of their credit cards or however many that they have. I've seen people with more. So let them feel comfortable. Let them feel that they can trust you as they talk about one of the more challenging aspects of their life. So build that rapport and get the correct information. You need to accurately run their analysis. Again, garbage in, garbage out. So if they just say they owe $250,000, I hate to tell you, that's garbage in. They truly don't have their numbers in front of you. That's when you need to stop and say, you know what, tell me down to the penny how much you owe. And I repeat it back to them. Okay, so it's 249,132.61, correct? Perfect. Thank you so much. And your payment, and they're going to repeat it back to you. So that's $1,199.10, correct? Fantastic. So you need to make sure you have that correct information so that you can make sure you're giving them an accurate analysis. So I really am so grateful to have been on the call today. Thank you so much for allowing me to spend some time with you guys to talk about this. And I mentioned this last week, but I do want to end with I think, a pretty good quote by James Coco. When a man forgets himself, he usually does something everybody else remembers. I mentioned this earlier. This process is not about you. This process is all about that person sitting in front of you. It's all about that person that's drowning right now, and you have that life preserver. The second that you start questioning yourself, oh, I don't feel like picking up the phone. Oh, I don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like doing that. You're making it about you. And I hate to tell you, but again, this is not about you. This is about the person that is $250 a month shy of making ends meet, that may have to declare bankruptcy, who can't put food on their table because they need additional income. This is about the server who has to work 3 different jobs just to feed her kid. This is about the family that has been living in their house, but they had to refinance because of medical bills, and now they don't know what to do. This isn't about you. This is about those people out there that need this program more than you know. It's about the people that need the additional source of income more than you know. It's about somebody that needs a purpose. It's somebody that needs something greater than themselves. When a man forgets himself, he usually does something everybody else remembers. And I hope you all remember that as you take action over the next week. So although I am not Mac Saunders, I know that Mac is very grateful for you all to be on the call today. I am very grateful that you are on the call today. Mac's contact information is here, mac@worthunlimited.com, and that is his cell phone number, believe it or not, on that screen. You also have Worth support. Mac has been super busy. I think he's been burning the candle at both ends. So you can also contact Worth support if you have questions, and that is support@worthunlimited.com, or you can simply call them at 877-576-5563. Thank you again for joining us today. I appreciate it greatly. I'm very grateful for each person being on the call today. And again, next week we will be discussing the next step of running an analysis. So I look forward to seeing you guys on the call next week. Thank you again, and have a wonderful week. Take care.